Lawyers defending American democracy. They're back, they're here, and they're in full effect. Hi, I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and this is The Breakdown. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Legal AF for all things at the intersection of politics and law. So, super excited to chat with Lauren Rickleen, who is the Executive Director of Lawyers Defending American Democracy, commonly known as LDAD. And they have been doing amazing work this year, and chatted with her earlier this year in terms of the bar complaint that was filed against Attorney General Pam Bondi. Didn't quite go as planned, so we're going to dig into that and the path forward. So, Lauren, welcome back, and thank you for taking the time to chat today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me and for your continuing interest in lawyers defending American democracy. We're very grateful for you.
For sure. Listen, I mean, we're all in this fight together. So, we got to do what we can. So last check, the bar complaint was filed against Pam Bondi basically it was filed at Florida bar. The Florida bar was like, nothing doing. We're not going to even look at it or deal with it for a variety of reasons. And then I believe next up was the Florida Supreme Court.
Yes, it was. It was a petition of mandamus to the Florida Supreme Court to what we hoped. Although when you say it didn't go as planned, it probably went as planned, unfortunately, but it wasn't as we hoped. But
right, our plan.
Right, our plan was we want to see accountability, but this is a tough climate to find that in, isn't it? But at any rate, we asked the Florida Supreme Court to essentially require, we asked the Florida Supreme Court to essentially require the Florida bar to do an investigation and, if appropriate, impose sanctions. That would be called telling the Florida bar to do its job. And we lost at the Florida Supreme Court. No surprise there at all. And what it means is that, the Florida bar position was essentially that they will not bring an investigation against a Florida lawyer who is also serving in a constitutional position with the federal government, which is, by the way, not the state of Florida law. But putting that aside, what it does is, it sadly, essentially allows the Attorney General of the United States to operate in a law-free zone for purposes of her own obligations to the rules of ethics, which, we see the operating in a law-free zone kind of playing out in real time, but it is, we get calls and emails from people all the time, so unhappy that these violations are taking place in open court, whether it's by the Attorney General or somebody in the Justice Department, and we're seeing more and more judges expressing their concerns. And hopefully at some point we will start to see some strength in the disciplinary authorities as more of these cases are brought, and see some adherence required to the code of ethics that all the rest of us have to pay attention to.
So do you think there's any pathway forward, especially in terms of her bar complaint, especially in light of what we're seeing with Lindsay Halligan and how, you're seeing indictments getting thrown out because of the fact that you have folks that aren't even properly installed or properly sworn in? Do you think that there might be a tipping point that might convince the Florida bar or the Florida Supreme Court to take further action?
Yeah, that goes to the hopes part, right? Yeah. As these things unfold, as complaints perhaps become amended or new ones are filed, because we're not the only ones who have filed complaints against the Attorney General. But as the outcry continues, one would hope that the light bulb would go on to say, even in the odd politics of Florida, there is an obligation to ensure accountability.
Yeah.
That is, Hope is what drives all of us in this job. All of us at Lawyers Defending American Democracy have an abundance of hope, which is required for the work we do.
Seriously. But, okay, so that's one aspect, but let's talk a little bit more about the other work that you're doing. So I know that you've recently filed an amicus brief in a lawsuit in Texas. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Well, I have to back up on the amicus briefs because we are filing at this point at such a pace. It's quite difficult and I never keep them straight by state. So forgive me on that one. But essentially what our approach has been to the amicus cases generally is to try to figure out on any given topic where the need is. Where is our voice needed when it comes to the assault on the profession? Where is our voice needed with respect to the amicus we did on the Congress, the Congress people who were being told that, contrary to what the law says, that ICE could have 7 days notice before allowing them to inspect a facility, on voting rights. So, we have really been weighing in on cases all across the map and are continuing to do so at a pretty significant pace for an organization this small. And that's one of the reasons why we have been working so hard to also engage volunteers in the work that we're doing, because the amicus work matter. All of this work matters, but it's really important in the amicus work to figure out, okay, in any given case, what's the angle we can bring as people, as lawyers focused on the rule of law and focused on the justice system and protecting democracy, and how do we best effectuate the strongest argument to set forth. And that's what we're doing, across the country right now in many, many cases.
So, well, then let me back up for a second then, because I know there's a lot of non-lawyers who watch Legal AF religiously. Yeah. So can you explain a little bit about what an amicus brief is and why it's important, why it's significant, and what outcome you can get from it?
Of course. So really, an amicus brief is translated a friend of the court brief. They're people, lawyers or organizations who are not parties to a case, but who would say, we have something to add to the legal arguments that have been made here. And we are going to ask the court for permission to be able to make those arguments as a friend of the court, an amicus brief. And so that's always the approach we take when we look at what the case is, what the parameters of the arguments have been, and where could we strengthen the arguments that have been made through the lens that we bring. That's essentially it in a nutshell. And, there are cases, what's interesting right now about the environment that we're in is that traditionally, not always, but of course, but traditionally, historically, amicus briefs were something that were filed at the Supreme Court level. You didn't see a whole lot of amicus action, friend of the court brief action, taking place at the and in district court or appellate courts. Generally, when it got up to the Supreme Court, that was the time to make use. And you can look at a Supreme Court document, you can see amicus after amicus after amicus on topics that are very, have a lot of significance. Now, it is quite common to see amicus briefs being filed at all levels by lots of interested parties who have important things to add, because we are seeing such a fraught legal environment in terms of the what what we would argue it would be lawless and unconstitutional behaviors in many cases that we are trying to protect against. So, essentially, to translate it in its best way, we are trying to be friends of the court in lots of different places.
Right. So it's like another way of educating the court about what's at stake and
Absolutely.
and really fleshing out serious arguments around, hey, maybe you haven't considered this, or, here's another group of people that'll be impacted, or here's another outcome that could be
Perfect.
incredibly
Yes.
problematic. So yeah, and thank you
Yes.
for doing that, because, like you said, I mean, that was really something that was only left to the Supreme Court level. And now, because things are
Sure.
so hectic, it's like we got to be intervening everywhere, right? Like not just at the highest court of the land, which is crazy.
Right.
But anyway, so with that being said, what else is, kind of like we're getting to the end of the year, right? So in reflecting in the year that was 2025, what do you think were some victories or some opportunities that arose over the course of the year? And what are you hoping for 2026? What are some of the initiatives that you're hoping to roll out as the new year begins?
Sure. Thank you for that question. In reflecting on 2025, which by my calculation was a decade long in and of itself, I would say, using the word victory, I love that word because it's so optimistic, and I love how upbeat you always are. It's such a joy to listen to you. But I would say that the victories have come in the rallying around the cruelty, the sheer illegality and divorced from any, the actions being taken right now. It really is almost like cruelty is the point in so many cases. And if it's not cruelty, it's retribution. And if it's not retribution, it's, something else equally disheartening. But what we are seeing is a real outcry, and the legal community, while those of our colleagues in big law right now who stay silent, we are very unhappy with, of course, and feel that they have an important role to play. But we're seeing, people like Professor Scott Cummings at UCLA, who is doing such incredibly important research around how the legal profession can actually increase the opportunities for autocracy to be hastened, in addition to what we like to think of as the legal profession coming to the rescue. And Professor Mitt Regan, who he's on our board now, actually, who has just been a master at helping with brief writing, and other colleagues in academia, Gary Simpson at Mercer Law School, who we work with quite closely in the board as well. I mean, these people bring a wealth of knowledge and relationships. And so that helps us all increase the opportunity to be very focused and very smart about what it is we're trying to do. The other is, positive side is coming from the lower courts, the federal district courts, and in some cases the appellate courts. They are working their hearts out to protect democracy and the rule of law in their own way and in the work they're doing, and they are doing it under such horrible conditions. And what amazes me, this is where my brain goes between being the optimist and the pessimist, because they are doing they're holding all their fingers in the dike, trying to make behavior be lawful.
Yeah.
And yet it goes to the Supreme Court, and time again, the Supreme Court, through the shadow docket, figures out a way to turn its back on these well-reasoned decisions from the district court. And so that's a part of this, it's the yin and the yang, but we are grateful every day for not only the incredible work product they're producing, but also producing it while under attack from the administration. So on the one hand, they have the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court does not even have the back of his own bench, because he's continually overruling what they're doing. And we have the administration, every time there's a decision they don't like, saying terrible things about the judge, the courts, the families, whatever it is. It endangers the life of the judges who are simply showing up every day to do their job. So it is both a hopeful and heartrending type of dynamic taking place with respect to that. So, we leave 2025 with a commitment to have to do more in 2026, because we're seeing some shifting taking place. We hope that means something, but we haven't yet seen it at the Supreme Court level. There's, we haven't seen any lessening in the administration on the attacks on the courts. And we haven't seen the legal profession writ large say, as they should, every firm in this country, it is wrong what is happening to the courts. And not only do we as lawyers depend on the courts being able to function independently, but you know what? Our clients do too. So by next year, we have to somehow get that message understood throughout every law firm in this country, every one of their clients, to better understand that living in a lawless environment does not do most legitimate businesses any good whatsoever. So that's a huge part of it. And so what we're trying to do is we have working groups for the amicus work we're doing. We have working groups for the accountability work that we do, looking at, where other ethics complaints may be appropriate. And we have a working group on judicial independence and threats to the courts, which is very critical. Trying to create as much output as we can to reach everybody to step up and do more. All of that feeds into this new initiative that we created called Meeting the Moment. And in Meeting the Moment, what we're trying to do is to galvanize lawyers across the country to sign up, work state by state, to be able to be a voice in their communities, in their networks, whether it is their Rotary Club or their faith-based community or a civic organization or a letter to the editor or an opinion piece. Whatever it is, we want lawyers to join us in the effort to say we all have to do more. We all have a voice in this. It's not just the legal profession, but the legal profession should be leaders here and not, not take the path that Scott Cummings so well lays out in his law review article of helping to create the conditions that embed autocracy in our government.
Yeah, that's huge. Now, how can folks learn more about your work? How can they support your work? And is there a role or a lane for non-lawyers who may be impressed with what they hear, but are like, I can't file an amicus brief. Help.
Well, fine. So first of all, our website is LDAD.org, and we invite everybody to please go to our website, LDAD.org, and we have all the work that we do is there. You can access a way to donate right there very easily. You can access forms to volunteer. We have a Meeting the Moment tab, and on that Meeting the Moment tab, there is a way to fill out a form to volunteer. It depends on the work. I think that as what we're seeing with respect to the Meeting the Moment work, that will become a lawyer plus, people in all walks of life kind of effort. But what we're trying to do is help create the environment where we speak with similar messages, where we can respond rapidly to lies and disinformation, where we can poke through algorithms that so quickly create chaos and just dishonoring the good work that is being done, as I mentioned, by way of example, by the courts and by others. So volunteering to support work with Meeting the Moment, support LDAD financially are two wonderful ways that people can help. And whatever you do, speak up, engage with your neighbors and your friends and your communities, because when what is the most self-defeating would be to say, what can I do? I'm only one voice.
Yes.
But that's not how democracy works. Democracy works because we all have a voice and we all have to use it. We need to take some degree of inspiration from the American Revolution series that Ken Burns just aired, talking about our founding, and what the inspiration to take from that is this notion of the Declaration of Independence, and thinking about what those words mean and how important they are and the resonance they have today. Next year is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. We will be doing some programming around that and some work relating to the Declaration. Will be increasing, our activity in every area, because we have no choice. None of us have a choice.
Amen to that. Lauren Rickleen, Lawyers Defending American Democracy. Thank you so much for being with me here on Legal AF. And to everyone out there, make sure to check out her website and check out the resources so that, again, you can be educated with the accurate information and you can do your bit to beat back misinformation. I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and this was The Breakdown. Take care.
Thank you.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.